I still remember the exact night I proposed to Megan on that quiet beach. 3 years of building a life together, and I was absolutely certain she was the one. The sunset over Galveston painted everything golden, as she said yes with tears streaming down her face. I had no idea that the woman I gave my grandmother's ring to would destroy everything I held dear. In just 6 weeks, I would lose my fiancé, my family, and nearly my entire reputation, all because of a single lie. Before we begin, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If you have ever been betrayed by someone you loved with all your heart, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. And if you believe that the truth always finds its way to the surface, stay with me until the very end of this story. Now let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Noah, and I am a software engineer living in Austin, Texas. I met Megan 3.5 years ago at a company party hosted by a mutual friend. She had recently ended a relationship with her ex-boyfriend Derek, about 6 months prior, and she seemed ready to move on. From the moment I saw her across that crowded room, something about her confidence and her bright smile pulled me in like gravity. We started dating almost immediately. Within a few weeks, I knew she was different from anyone I had ever been with. She was funny, ambitious, and she made me feel like I was the center of her universe. After dating for a year, we decided to move in together. We found a cozy 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs of Austin, close enough to my office, and with a small balcony where we would drink coffee together every Sunday morning. I worked as a software engineer for a growing tech company, and my salary was comfortable enough to cover most of our expenses. Megan worked as a marketing coordinator, but her job was less stable than mine. She changed positions twice in the 2 years we lived together, and there were months when her income was unpredictable. I never complained about paying more than my share of the rent and bills. I loved her, and I believed we were building something permanent. Looking back now, there were small signs I chose to ignore. Megan would sometimes mention Derek in passing, and her voice would take on a strange quality I could not quite identify. Once late at night, I woke up and found her texting someone in the dark. When I asked who it was, she said it was just a coworker dealing with a project emergency. I believed her because I had no reason not to. Trust was the foundation of everything we had built. After 3 years together, I decided it was time to take the next step. I planned the proposal for months, saving up for a ring that I knew she would love. I chose Galveston Beach because it was where we had taken our first weekend trip together. On the evening of our 3rd anniversary, as the sun dipped below the horizon and turned the sky into shades of orange and pink, I got down on one knee. Megan cried. She covered her mouth with both hands and nodded before I even finished asking the question. When I slipped the ring onto her finger, I felt like the luckiest man alive. That night, I called my parents to share the news. My father, Richard, a retired military man with a stern demeanor, actually sounded pleased. He said it was about time I settled down. My mother, Patricia, was overjoyed and immediately started talking about helping us plan the wedding. Even my grandmother, Eleanor, who was 82 years old and lived in a nursing home 2 hours away, sent her blessings through a phone call that made my heart swell. We set the wedding date for 8 months later. I started putting aside extra money each paycheck, building a fund for the ceremony and our future together. But I began to notice that Megan did not seem as invested in the planning as I expected. When I suggested we look at venues, she would change the subject. When I asked about her guest list, she said she would get to it later. I told myself she was just stressed from work. About 6 weeks after the proposal, things started to shift in ways I could not explain. Megan began coming home later than usual, always with excuses about client meetings that ran long or traffic that was worse than expected. Her phone, which used to sit face up on the kitchen counter, was now always face down or tucked away in her purse. One evening I came home early from work and found her in our bedroom, speaking quietly into her phone. The moment she saw me, she ended the call abruptly. I asked who she was talking to. She said it was just a colleague asking about a presentation. Her eyes did not quite meet mine when she said it. Something in my gut twisted. but I pushed it down. I told myself I was being paranoid, that 3 years of love and trust should not be undone by a single, awkward moment. I decided to believe her and move forward, but the feeling would not leave me. It sat in my chest like a stone growing heavier with each passing day. I started paying closer attention to the small things. The way she angled her body away from me when she texted. The perfume she wore on nights she claimed to be working late. The distance that had crept into our physical intimacy without me noticing when it began. I convinced myself that every couple goes through phases like this. I told myself that wedding planning stress was real, and that she would come back to me once things settled down. I had no idea how wrong I was. One morning, about 6 weeks after I had placed that ring on her finger, Megan sat me down at our kitchen table, with a serious expression on her face. My first thought was that something bad had happened at her job. My second thought was that maybe she wanted to postpone the wedding. I was not prepared for what she actually said. She told me she was pregnant. For a moment I could not breathe. Then a wave of emotions crashed over me. Shock, fear, and then something unexpected. Joy. I was going to be a father. I jumped up from my chair and wrapped my arms around her. I told her we would figure everything out together, that I would be the best father I could possibly be, that our child would never want for anything. Megan seemed relieved by my reaction. She said she was about 6 weeks along and we agreed to keep it a secret until she passed the first trimester. That night I lay awake in bed, my mind racing with thoughts of nurseries and baby names and teaching my son or daughter to ride a bicycle. But somewhere in the darkness, a calculation began forming in my head. 6 weeks pregnant. I tried to remember the last time Megan and I had been intimate. It had been before my business trip to Seattle, which was over 8 weeks ago. I had been gone for 2 weeks, and when I returned, Megan had seemed distant. We had not been together since. The math did not add up. I spent the next few days trying to convince myself that I was remembering wrong. Maybe it was 7 weeks, not 8. Maybe I was miscounting. But I could not shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. I called my best friend Tyler, who I had known since our college days. Tyler was a lawyer now working at a firm downtown. I told him I needed advice, but I framed it as a general question about paternity rights for unmarried fathers. Tyler immediately sensed something was off. He asked me directly if I thought the baby might not be mine. I told him about the timeline. I told him about the late nights and the secret phone calls and the way Megan had been pulling away from me. Tyler listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said something that hit me like a punch to the stomach. He said if I had doubts, I needed to find out the truth before the baby was born. He said there were prenatal paternity tests available, and he could help me navigate the legal aspects, if it came to that. That conversation changed everything. I was no longer a man eagerly awaiting fatherhood. I was a man searching for truth in a relationship built on what might have been lies. I started paying closer attention to Megan's behavior. I watched how she guarded her phone, how she stepped out of the room to take certain calls, how she sometimes smiled at her screen before quickly hiding it when she noticed me looking. One night, while she slept, her phone lit up on the nightstand. I did not unlock it, but I could see the preview of the message on the screen. It was from an unsaved number. The message read, "I miss you. When can I see you again?" My heart stopped. I memorized the number and put the phone back exactly where it had been. I did not sleep that night. The next day, while Megan was at work, I searched through the apartment. I did not know what I was looking for until I found it. In the bottom of her purse, tucked inside a zippered pocket, was a receipt from a hotel in downtown Austin. The date on the receipt was during my 2-week trip to Seattle. The charge was for 1 night, and it listed 2 guests. I sat on the edge of our bed and stared at that piece of paper until the words blurred. The woman I loved. The woman I had asked to marry me. had been at a hotel with someone else while I was away on business. And now she was pregnant. I needed to know who the other person was. I took out my phone and called the number from the late-night text message. A man answered on the third ring. His voice was casual, familiar, like he was expecting someone else. He said, "Megan, why did you change your number?" I hung up without saying a word. My hands were shaking as I searched for that phone number online. It took me less than 5 minutes to find a social media profile connected to it. The name attached to the account was Derek, Megan's ex-boyfriend. I clicked through his photos with a growing sense of dread. Most of them were old, but one had been posted just 4 weeks ago. It showed a woman's hand resting on a table, and on her finger was a ring I recognized immediately. It was the engagement ring I had given Megan. I sat in my car for 2 hours that afternoon, parked in an empty lot behind a grocery store. I did not cry. I did not scream. Grewed. To deado. I just felt numb, like someone had reached inside my chest and removed everything that made me feel alive. The woman I trusted with my future had been seeing her ex behind my back. The baby she was carrying was probably not mine, and she had been wearing my ring while another man took photos of her hand. When I finally went home that evening, I found Megan on the couch, watching television, like nothing was wrong. She smiled at me and asked how my day was. The casualness of it made something inside me snap. I sat down across from her and asked the question that had been burning in my throat for days. I asked her if the baby was mine. Her smile faded. She stared at me for what felt like an eternity. Then her eyes filled with tears, and I knew the answer before she even opened her mouth. She admitted that she had seen Derek while I was in Seattle. She said it was only supposed to be one time, a moment of weakness. She claimed she had been feeling neglected because I was always working or traveling, and Derek had been there to listen. She made it sound like it was my fault that she had betrayed me. I asked her point blank if the baby was Derek's. She said she did not know. She said it could be either of ours, and she begged me not to throw away everything we had built over one mistake. One mistake. As if the months of lies and sneaking around were just a minor inconvenience. I told her I wanted a prenatal paternity test. Her reaction told me everything I needed to know. She refused. She said if I truly loved her, I would not need proof. She said demanding a test was the same as calling her a liar. I stood up and told her it was over. I told her she had 1 week to find somewhere else to live. She could take her things, but she could not take the future she had stolen from me. That was when her demeanor changed completely. The tears stopped. Her face hardened into something I had never seen before. She told me that if I kicked her out, she would put my name on the birth certificate, whether I liked it or not. She said she would take me to court for child support. She said I would pay for that baby for 18 years, regardless of who the real father was. I told her to get out. But Megan had one more weapon to use against me, and she did not hesitate to deploy it. She told me that if I did not back down, she would tell my family that I was the one who cheated. She would tell them I abandoned her while she was pregnant with my child. She would make sure everyone I loved believed I was the monster. I did not think she would actually do it. I was wrong. The next morning, before I even had a chance to call my parents and explain what happened, my mother called me. Her voice was cold, nothing like the warm woman who had congratulated me on my engagement just weeks before. She said Megan had told her everything. She said she could not believe her own son would cheat on his pregnant fiancée and throw her out on the street. I tried to explain. I told her about Derek, about the hotel receipt, about the timeline that did not make sense. My mother did not want to hear it. She said Megan had shown her text messages, proving I had been unfaithful. She said Megan was a sweet girl who would never make up such accusations. She told me she was ashamed of me and hung up. I tried calling my father next. The conversation was even worse. Richard had always been a man of few words and strong convictions. When he answered the phone, he did not let me speak. He called me a disgrace to the family name. He said he had not raised his son to be a cheater and a coward. He said if everything Megan told them was true, I was no longer welcome in his house. I kept trying to interrupt to tell my side of the story, but he would not listen. The line went dead before I could say anything meaningful. I was alone. My fiancée had betrayed me, and now she had turned my own family against me with lies. I had never felt so isolated in my entire life. 2 days later, my father showed up at my apartment, unannounced. I opened the door expecting an argument. What I got was violence. Without a word, Richard stepped forward and punched me square in the face. I stumbled backward, my lip splitting open, blood dripping onto my shirt. He stood over me and said words I will never forget. He said I was not his son anymore. He said he was removing me from his will and telling the entire extended family what kind of man I had become. Then he turned and walked away, slamming the door so hard the pictures on my wall rattled. I sat on the floor of my apartment, bleeding and broken, wondering how my life had fallen apart so completely. 48 hours earlier, I had been planning a wedding. Now I had lost everything. Tyler found me like that. He had been trying to call me all day, and when I did not answer, he drove over to check on me. He helped me clean up the cut on my lip and sat with me while I told him everything that had happened. Tyler did not waste time with sympathy. He went straight into lawyer mode. He told me we needed to fight back with evidence, not emotions. He said Megan had made a critical mistake by threatening to put my name on the birth certificate and sue for child support. If we could prove the baby was not mine, her entire scheme would collapse. Over the next 2 weeks, Tyler helped me build a case. We gathered the hotel receipt, the text messages from Derek's number, the photo of Megan's ring on Derek's social media page. Tyler filed a motion, requesting a court-ordered prenatal paternity test. Megan tried to fight it, but the judge ruled in my favor. The results came back 3 weeks later. I was not the father. Derek was with a probability of 99.9%. I remember staring at that paper for a long time. Part of me had known the truth from the moment I did the math in my head. But seeing it in black and white was different. It was proof that I had not been crazy. It was proof that Megan had lied to me, betrayed me, and tried to trap me into raising another man's child. Tyler immediately sent a cease and desist letter to Megan regarding her defamatory statements to my family. He also informed her that if she continued to spread false accusations, we would pursue legal action for slander. Within 24 hours, Megan stopped responding to any communication. She packed her things and disappeared from my life. But clearing my name with my family would not be as simple as sending a letter. I sent the paternity test results to my grandmother Eleanor first. Of everyone in my family, she had always been the fairest and most willing to hear both sides of a story. I called her the next day, and she answered with warmth in her voice. She said she had read everything I sent. She said she believed me, and she said it was time for the family to hear the truth. Grandma Eleanor arranged a family meeting at her nursing home. My parents were reluctant to attend, but they could not refuse her. She was the matriarch of our family, and her word carried weight that even my stubborn father could not ignore. When I walked into that room, my mother could not meet my eyes. My father sat rigid in his chair, his jaw clenched tight. Grandma Eleanor asked me to present my evidence, and I did. I showed them the hotel receipt. I showed them the timeline. I showed them the paternity test results. I explained how Megan had fabricated text messages to make it look like I was the one who cheated. When I finished, the room was silent. My mother started crying. She kept saying she was sorry over and over like a broken record. My father did not speak. He just stared at the floor with an expression I had never seen on his face before. It looked like shame. Grandma Eleanor reached over and took my hand. She told me she had always known I was a good man. She said she was proud of me for fighting for the truth instead of giving up. My mother apologized properly a few days later. We sat together at a coffee shop, and she admitted that she had been too quick to believe Megan without hearing my side. She said she would spend the rest of her life making it up to me. I told her I forgave her, and I meant it. Holding on to anger would only poison my own heart. My father was harder to reach. He never apologized directly. About a month after the family meeting, I received a text message from him. It said 3 words: I was wrong. That was all. No explanation, no excuse, no promise to do better. Just an acknowledgement of his mistake. I accepted it for what it was. Some people do not know how to apologize with words. Some people can only admit fault in the smallest possible way. My relationship with my father would never be what it was before. The memory of his fist connecting with my face would always stand between us. But I chose to let go of the resentment. Carrying it would only weigh me down. As for Megan, I learned through mutual acquaintances that Derek wanted nothing to do with her or the baby. He disappeared the moment he found out about the pregnancy. Megan was left alone, facing the consequences of her own choices. I did not feel satisfaction at her misfortune. I just felt tired. The months that followed were difficult. I went to therapy to process everything that had happened. I learned that betrayal by someone you love leaves wounds that take time to heal. I learned that being abandoned by your family, even temporarily, creates scars that do not vanish overnight. But I also learned that I was stronger than I thought. I had survived the worst thing that had ever happened to me, and I was still standing. Tyler remained my closest friend through all of it. He never once doubted me, even when my own parents did. That kind of loyalty is rare, and I will never forget it. Today, more than a year after that nightmare ended, I am in a better place. I have a new apartment, a promotion at work, and a sense of peace I did not think I would ever feel again. I still think about what happened sometimes. The memories do not hurt as much as they used to. They are just reminders of a chapter I survived. If there is one lesson I took from all of this, it is that the truth will always find its way to the surface. Lies can spread fast, and they can turn the people you love against you. But lies cannot stand forever. If you hold on to your integrity, if you refuse to give up on yourself, the truth will eventually set you free. Not everyone who loves you will believe you when times get hard. That is a painful reality I had to accept. But the people who do believe in you, the ones who stand by your side when the whole world turns against you, those are the people worth keeping in your life. I want to ask you something before we end. If everyone you trusted suddenly believed a lie about you, how would you fight to prove your innocence? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories matter to me. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss another story, and turn on the notification bell so you are always the first to know when new content drops. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you never have to experience what I went through, but if you ever do, I hope you remember that the truth is worth fighting for. Take care of yourselves, protect your peace, and never let anyone make you doubt your own worth.